Is this a bait event? I mean, we've got legendaries coming. What are we doing with all these grass and fairy type Pokemon? Welcome back to another Pokemon Sleep video. It's Brovini here. Today we are covering Comfey, the new release Pokemon, and also the Flower Festival event. We'll be covering the event information, we'll be covering which area you should be picking for this event and also why. We'll also cover some tips on how to prepare for this event. Now, both the release of Comfey, or some people might say Comfey, and the Flower Festival event will be on the 22nd of April, with the event starting at 4 AM and Comfey being released at 3 PM on that same day. Regarding Comfey, we're going to keep it short because we don't have much information about it yet. What we do know is that it's going to be a snoozing type Pokemon. It will be available at Greengrass Isle, Cyan Beach, and Lapis Lakeside only. And I did put up a poll to see what people thought the specialty of Comfey will be. And most people thought that Comfey would be a skills specialist. At the same time, during this event, the Comfey release and also the Flower Festival, we're also getting the Good Sleep Day event, which will happen from the Tuesday to the Thursday of that same week. Now, while there might seem like a lot of things are happening during this event, we've got Comfey, we've got the actual event, and then we've got Good Sleep Day. Do be aware that this could be bait for your sleep points, for your resources, because after the Raikou event, I think a lot of you can see that, well, we're gonna need Master Biscuits for legendaries, because they're just so limited numbers to catch, and they're just so hard to encounter in the wild if you don't have an incense. You really want to be keeping those sleep points for a Master Biscuit if you want to catch those legendaries. But also, instead of catching all these grass and fairy types, shouldn't you be looking for a good Totodile and a good Cyndaquil? Now, I myself already have a very good Feraligatr, so I'm just looking for a Typhlosion. But if you don't have either of these, this event may not be that sensible to you. Of course, it depends on which stage of the game you're at. Of course, if you need those grass types in order to start farming at Lapis Lakeside, or if you don't have a good healer yet, this event could be good for you. So let's cover some of the actual event bonuses. Just like many other events, some Pokemon will be appearing outside of their own sleep type. So that means if you get snoozing, you can actually get slumbering Pokemon or even dozing Pokemon. That's pretty standard now with events. The wording, you may meet certain shiny Pokemon, may not sound like they're saying very much, but typically that means a boosted shiny chance. We'll be getting one guaranteed extra hungry Pokemon every day. But just be aware that that could just be bait for more of your sleep points and your biscuits. So then that means less for your legendary events, or just means you gotta spend a bit more when the time comes. The dishes will be set to salads. So the week before, you want to be farming up your salad ingredients, and we'll come back to cover this in a moment. The final strength of dishes will be multiplied by 1.5. So good idea to keep your Sunday dinner for the new week, for the Monday of the new week. And even better if you run an expand pot Pokemon on maybe Saturday and Sunday to keep expanding the pot. But of course you can't stack the expand pot unless you don't cook. The moment you cook, the expand pot skill will disappear. Now the only difference between this point here where it says 4.5 times for extra tasty dish and the 3 times for extra tasty dish is that one is for Sunday, because normally Sunday you get 3 times strength for extra tasty. So that's why it's 4.5 if you include the 1.5 bonus from the event. And then we're going to be getting grass types and fairy types, and they're all listed behind me. But these will all have boosted spawn rates. Now, credits to whoever made this beautiful graphic that summarizes all the grass and fairy type spawns that appear. And that's basically that long list of Pokemon that was in text form in the event information. But now we have a nice visual graphical representation of that. So now, which area should you go to for this event? And I'm going to start by saying it really depends on what Pokemon you want, but it probably isn't Taupe Hollow. Now, if you're hunting a berry specialist for fairy berries, that would be the Clefairy. it doesn't actually affect our discussion. You're more than welcome to catch one. I don't personally like the Clefaline's skill because it's too random, the metronome skill. Having said that, there's no problem if you want to catch a berry specialist for fairy berries, go for it. It just doesn't affect our discussion of which area you should pick because it's available in every single area, as you can see behind me. If you're relatively new to the game, and we've had a lot of new players join us from the Raikou event, I would say getting a good healer is important. Now, Igglybuff is very good as a healer. It is the worst of the 3 energy for everyone healers. But if you're just starting the game, this is the one to go for because it will help you in your early game. I don't personally recommend Sylveon because it's just going to cost you more main seeds. It's gonna eat up all your Eevee candies. Even though it is a bit better than Igglybuff, I would suggest that you catch an Igglybuff and evolve it 2 times in order to get those skill levels, therefore reducing your cost of main seeds. But also, you don't eat up Eevee candies by investing in an Igglybuff. So catching a good Igglybuff during this event, if you're just starting out the game and you don't have a healer, is a good idea. Again, Igglybuff's line is pretty much available everywhere with the exception of Snowdrop Tundra. Where you can't catch Iggly, you can catch Jiggly. I do not recommend catching Jiggly because then you'll lose out on 1 evolution. In other words, you have to spend 1 more main seed in comparison to catching an Iggly at its base evolution. If you're hunting an Iggly, it's ideally going to be at Cyan Beach. And the reason that is well, there's too much variety at Greengrass, but also your Greengrass Isles area bonus is probably going to max out at some point in the future, which a lot of people are experiencing because a lot of the events are happening at Greengrass. So if you don't have to, don't go to Greengrass Isle. And if you are just starting out, the other 3 areas, Taupe, Snowdrop, and Lakeside, are going to be too hard for you to rank up anyway. So just stick to Cyan Beach if you're just starting out. As for the more long-term, the more veteran players, it now depends on, well, which Pokemon you're still hunting. Do you need a potato farmer? If so, then Bellsprout is a good choice for you. Then you can go to either Cyan Beach or Lakeside. Again, not Greengrass because of the area bonus issue. If you're hunting Chikorita, go to Cyan Beach or Lakeside. If you're hunting the Bulbasaur line, then only Lakeside. Again, not Greengrass because of the area bonus issues. I think the main advantage of going to Snowdrop is to catch Bellsprout because there's less variety. So you can focus more on catching a Bellsprout if you've got everything else. But also, if you're still hunting a Absol, because of the Good Sleep Day event, you also have a better chance at getting Absol because your Drowsy power is going to be higher. But the problem with Snowdrop is that Comfey is not going to be there. So once we find out whether Comfey is any good, you might decide that you want to catch Comfey, then you don't want to go to Snowdrop Tundra and you don't want to go to Taupe Hollow because both of these do not have Comfey. If you are hunting Comfey, it would have to be either Cyan Beach or Lapis Lakeside. You can do it at Greengrass too, but again, there's too much variety, so it may be lesser chance of getting Comfey and also the area bonus issues. Personally, I'm going to be either at Cyan Beach or Lapis Lakeside. Cyan Beach if I want less variety, so therefore more chance to encounter Comfey. But Lapis Lakeside has the added advantage of being able to continue to hunt Stuffle and Dratini and Ralts and so on. Now, some of you might argue that in preparation for Entei, you might want to go to Taupe Hollow in order to catch a good Cyndaquil. I think it's best to leave that for another week, like a different week, because your spawns are going to get crowded out by these boosted spawns. Your 8 Pokemon that could spawn might, like half of them might just be these guys as opposed to what you actually want. And yes, I'm still personally hoping to hunt a good Cyndaquil and also a good Onix, but it's just not the time for it. Personally, I'm really hoping that Suicune comes before Entei so that I get a little bit more time to find that Cyndaquil. Now, if we're talking about strategies on how to maximize the benefits from this event, do we really need to overstack our berries, expand pot, and do everything we can to try and get the Drowsy power as high as possible? Well, I don't feel like this event necessarily needs that, unlike the Raikou event where we're all trying to get Master 9 as quickly as possible so that there's a chance at a wild spawn Raikou. let it be known that I never got a wild spawn Raikou despite getting Master 9 pretty early. But on that note, if you're aiming for a high drowsy power, your goal will be to catch some rare Pokemon in their respective areas. So just so you guys know, so we already talked about how Absol is at Snowdrop Tundra. We talked about how Onix Steelix is at Taupe Hollow. So you could utilize the Good Sleep Day event for these two Pokemon on these two areas. Other areas that have sort of rarer Pokemon, so Lakeside has a Ditto, Cyan Beach has Pinsir, Heracross, Kangaskhan, and Ditto. And I'm going to assume that Comfey also has a high requirement, a high drowsy power requirement in order to encounter. So that would apply whether it's on Cyan Beach or whether it's on Lakeside or Greengrass. So if you're hunting some of these rarer Pokemon, then choose an area that suits your needs because of the Good Sleep Day bonus. But otherwise, a lot of these spawns, pretty much 90% of these Pokemon, you want to be catching them at base evolution. A lot of them are skill specialists, a lot of them are ingredient specialists. You want to be catching them at base evolution anyway. So getting a huge drowsy power isn't a requirement to do relatively well in this event. On to the final part of this video, I'm going to show you guys how to use the Rainix calculator in order to look at sort of what dishes you can make with your ingredients, and also looking at what ingredients you should be building up in order to prepare yourself for the salads of the event week. Now, there are two tabs that you can use in the Rainix calculator, either recipes/dishes or recipe calculator. I think it's more simple to look at recipes/dishes, so that's where we're going to start. And we're going to select salad because that's what we get for the flower event. Now let's cover all the basic functions of this calculator and what all the numbers mean. So once I've selected salad, this filter here is to select dishes that has to have the ingredients you've selected. So for example, if I select leek, it will show up with immunity leek salad and ninja salad because it will only show dishes that have leeks. So for example, if you have an excess of certain ingredients, well, these are the dishes that you'll want to be focusing on. But what I find more useful, especially for beginners, is to choose based on what ingredients you don't have. You either haven't unlocked that ingredient, or maybe you just don't have a good farmer for it. So for example, if you're just starting out, there's no way you would have all these rare ingredients like tails, mushrooms, potatoes, and leeks. Or maybe you just joined the game, you don't have a stuffle because that's at Lakeside, so you take out corn. Or maybe you just don't have a good egg farmer. So you can take out all of these ingredients that you can't do and then see what remains. So this function I quite like. Or maybe certain weeks you only want to use certain ingredients. So the ingredients that you don't want, you would take out. Now I would say that if you don't have any of these 5 ingredients unlocked, you may struggle a little bit for this event week because your highest recipe bonus dish is only at a 25% with a relatively low pot size. So let's zoom in on that. So this is the pot size, 35 meaning how many ingredients are included in this dish. So if your pot size is smaller than this, then you can't cook it. I've sorted these by pot size. You can see it going down as I scroll down the list. This is the recipe bonus. Now, recipe bonus only applies to the ingredients within the dish. Any extra ingredients to fill up the pot don't get this plus 25%. But don't forget that because of the event bonus, your extra ingredients will also get a 50% bonus on top. So maxing out that pot is still a very good idea. Just don't do it with ingredients that you actually need for the next dish, for your next meal. For those of you who are long-term players, you will probably have most of these unlocked, so you don't have to select any of these icons. And I'd say 90% of the time you want to cook dishes that are at least 25% recipe bonus or above, ideally as high as 35 and 48%. Specifically for this event, I would recommend that you focus on either of the first 4 dishes listed here. These 4 are some of the most powerful dishes for a salad week. Now, if we look at the top 4 dishes, there's actually a lot of variety of different ingredients. We got oil, corn, tomatoes, potato, leek, mushroom, beans, ginger, tails. It actually means that ingredient magnet, ingredient ticket are going to be quite useful to you because variety is what they provide. So bringing a Vaporeon to this event is actually a very good idea. You can then just cook whatever dish you can make out of these 4. And if you need to top off any ingredients that you're just short of by a little bit, then just bring whatever Pokemon you need to complete those ingredients. We're talking about things like Victory Bell, Dugtrio, Ditto, we're talking about Venusaur, and then you should be able to pretty comfortably get through the week. Now, if you don't have a Vaporeon, don't worry, even Eevee does a pretty good magnet by itself. In other circumstances where we only want to create one dish type, then an ingredient magnet Pokemon is not a great idea because it's going to give you too much variety when you really just want to focus on 1 or 2 or 3 ingredients. So if you haven't invested in a Vaporeon, now is a good time for that. And Slarking is an alternative to Vaporeon, because Slarking has an exceptionally high skill trigger rate similar to that of a skill specialist, in fact second only to Vaporeon, despite being a berry specialist. And what I also like to do is, if you go over to Recipe Calculator, you'll be able to input some numbers to see what ingredients are best to be used as extra ingredients. Of course, you should be able to tell that by looking at the 4 recipes we talked about and going, actually, what don't I need for those 4 recipes? But what you can do in the calculator is, for the recipes that we've talked about, so oil, corn, tomatoes, potato, all of those, I put a 99 ingredient. It just means that I've got 99 in my bag, and the calculator will go, yep, you can cook that. But if I accidentally put 0 and I don't have enough, the calculator will say I'm 14 tomatoes short of completing that dish. So what I've done is, any ingredient that I don't actually need, I just put a 0 down. And don't forget to save by clicking this button. So if I put a 0 down and I don't see any dishes out of the top 4 that I'm planning to cook, if I don't see any dishes that have a red minus sign on them, it tells me that these 0 ingredients are the ones that I should use as extra ingredients for that week, and it won't harm my cooking of the 4 dishes. So there would be eggs. Again, eggs are pretty rare, so I probably wouldn't use them as extra ingredients anyway. I'd keep them for maybe the week after. Cacao, sausages, milk, they're pretty useless for this event. Under this part of the calculator, you can also input the level of your dish so that you can see the actual strength that the dish provides. I don't think that's as important because your dish will actually level up over time anyway. Now, as you can see from my page here, I can't actually cook gluttony potato salad because I've put 0 on them. I plan to use eggs and sausages for extra ingredients for the other dishes. If in your situation, you can't cook some of the top dishes and you have to cook gluttony potato salad, you might not want to have eggs and sausages as extra ingredients. So then you would swap this around and make sure you can cook that gluttony potato salad. And maybe you don't plan to cook slowpoke tail or green grass salad, then you would have no oils. So then you can still cook ninja salad, carmine, fruit salad, and gluttony potato salad. So that's how I would use this page on the calculator to see what type of variety I can cook depending on how I vary my ingredient choices. Now, for the advanced users, you can also use the team analysis on the calculator. Just make sure your pot size is correct. So you go to your settings, you go to your cooking, and make sure you've got the correct pot size. Otherwise, nothing will work properly. And then select the dishes you plan to cook. But also for the numbers to be accurate, you'll need to go to your recipe calculator and get your dishes to the correct level. So let's say my green grass salad is level 40. Save that and then go back to team analysis. Then the numbers will change over here as well. You can do it in the settings page. You can go to the settings and then do that here, increase the level of your dish. And what the calculator will do is take the ingredients that you can produce with your team, and then apply that as a proportion of the strength from the dishes you've selected to cook. And that's what this number will be outputted as. This is a bit more advanced. It's the topic for another video. So that's it for today. Good luck with the event, guys. I don't think you should spend all of your resources and all of your sleep points on this event, but you do what you need to do. If you're still hunting a healer, it's a good opportunity to get a good Wigglytuff. And don't forget, now you can support the channel by becoming a member by clicking this join button under any of my videos, which will allow you to unlock these emojis for my comment section. And then we're going to be getting grass types and wiggly types that are behind wiggly types